साफ है कि भारत देश और इस संस्कृति और समाज अब बहुत, इनका भविष्य बहुत अच्छा है। हम ये प्रार्थना करते हैं ईश्वर से कि आपको पूरी शक्ति दे कि हम लोगों का इस तरह से जो लीडरशिप आपकी है उसमें आगे बढ़ते हुए स्वामी आर्यवेश जी, स्वामी संपूर्णानंद जी, स्वामी प्रणवानंद जी और सभी आचार्यगण, आशीष जी, कुलभूषण जी और अपने प्रधान विश्व जी और भुवनेश जी, सबको मैं नमन करता हूं और आशा करता हूं कि ये सभा बहुत अच्छे हाथों में है और ये आगे बढ़ते रहेंगे। बहुत ज़्यादा खुश हैं और हम इनके साथ हैं। मेरा जो टॉपिक है अभी जो मैंने लिया है, हिस्ट्री ऑफ वैदिक सिविलाइजेशन, हमेशा पिछले कई सालों में कुछ इस टाइप के टॉपिक में लेता हूँ तो थोड़ा सा मेन स्ट्रीम से हटके होते हैं, क्योंकि विद्वता की बात, जैसे आप कर्म फल की बात हुई, ये सब बहुत बड़े बड़े विद्वान जिनका जीवन जिन्होंने समर्पण किया है वो मौजूद है। तो थोड़ा ऐसी कुछ बात हो जिसमें थोड़ा एकेडमिक कुछ इस तरह का टच हो, तो इसमें हो सकता है कुछ गलतियां हों इन टर्म्स ऑफ फॉर एग्जांपल क्रोनोलॉजी। सो प्लीज हेल्प एंड करेक्ट if there some mistakes are there in the chronology part of it. So this is the history of Vedic civilization I'm going to speak on for a few minutes. What I have done first is to go over the initial, the creation. We have the creation versus the evolution. Then we have this Vedic civilization, our scriptures, and how the invaders, especially a British, tried to divide us by saying that there is a history of invasion from the Aryan, so they have moved Dravidians to the south, so history of Aryan invasion theory, and see how it can be refuted in today's terms. So there are two views. One is creation, that means the human being was created at the inception of humanity, and then there is this evolution that we evolved from the initial single cellular. First it was inorganic, then it became multi-particular elements or organelles of the cell, and then it became extremely organized, and here we are today. But I am a scientist, physician, but it still I believe that human beings are different from other beings. We have to think before we act. No animal has to do that. They are pre-programmed. Ahar, bhay, maithun, nidra. They are basically into that phrase. We are different. Their lives revolved on procreation and all that. Our lives, whatever we do, we have to think. And they are on inherent behavior, we are not. So the modern view is that the humanity, I am going towards the initial movement of human being, two phases. 80 and 60,000 years ago, they moved from Ethiopia, they moved on to where the Mesopotamia, the east on the south of Ural mountain, east of the Caspian Sea, and north of the present day Iran, and that's where Iraq, that's where and then they moved from there on through the Afghanistan to India. That is the modern view. It keeps changing, as you know, over and over again. The Vedic view doesn't change. The Vedic view is that when the Himalayas were formed, the Indian plate separated from the Antarctica, Australia, Africa, Madagascar, all of that, they call it Jambudvip then, and it shifted, it's still moving, and about 140 million years ago, the Himalayas were formed, then they cooled off, so somewhere in 120 million years ago, that the human being originated, and that's how the knowledge was given at the inception of the humanity. Now, there's a difference. There is a creation of life, and then creation of human, three different things. Now this little cartoon, I took it out, just came from Greece, and there was this god Zeus, and this is supposedly a god of thunder, god of lightning, just like the Indra. And I saw swastik there as well, and then there were these 12 Olympian gods. This cartoon is put to see that this multi-god thing and try to create different types of power has been there. Whether it came from India there is not certain, but that's a possibility. The ancient name of the subcontinent, what Arya, this audience knows very well, different types of people lived there. Asur, Dev, Pishach, Kinnar, this, but not Arya. So Arya was a name not to a particular group of people. It was a quality of any human being. Even Ravana was considered Arya. Mahabharata defines Arya as the one who does not try to increase the existent animosity. The mantra is there for the sake of the time. I will not read the mantra. Is not egotistic, doesn't get disappointed, is not too happy, doesn't get pleasure and unhappiness of others, and eager to donate. Similarly, a poet has defined this as one who is knowledgeable, always satisfied, and can control his mind, honest on his senses, donates, and is kind to humanity. So overall, it's the quality that's the Arya. The Arya word, you know how badly it has been used in the modern context by Hitler and others. So some people have begun to understand that, and Dr. David Froehlich himself is a Jewish, and he has written the theory of Arya invasion beside the others. So I will walk you through the names. Now the name Hindu, most of us know that name Hindu doesn't exist in our literature. There are 3 or 4 possibilities. If there are more, maybe so. The word H from Himalaya and in from the ocean. So anybody living between the Himalayas and the ocean, वो हो गया Hindu. इसी तरह से जो सिंधु नदी है, anybody who lived around, the people who came, S became H, so became Hindu. And similarly, there are mountains called Hindu Kush, the people of the Caucasian mountain range known as the Caucasians. So that's a possibility. Now, so having said that, let me say about the creation. And Ashish just mentioned about the Brahma and the creation. So 1 day of Brahma is the 4 billion years. It has 1000 Chaturyugi. And each, so we have 28वां भी मनवंतर चल रहा है, and 28वीं चतुर्युगी 7वें मनवंतर की. And Kalp is the creation, and human being about 140 million years ago, that's when Himalaya was born. So the yuga is divided into Satyug, Treta, Dwapar. It's for the sake of simplification, I made it 4.4, 0.8, 1.2 and 1.6 million years. If you put it all together, it becomes 4 million times 1000. That's the one creation. That's how. So this is about the creation, our scriptures. Now remember, Vedic civilization. So civilization is in different parts. This is one of them. I need not go through the scriptures. Everybody knows the different scriptures. There are scriptures which are Vedic and which doesn't confine with the Vedic teachings. So those which don't confine with Vedic teachings, Purans and all that, some of them, Puran means what has happened before. That means some is facts, one is fiction. Okay, so again back to a little bit, because I want to show some 4 or 5 slides which I actually took pictures from the Rohtak myself, Swami, not Captain, Dhruv Senji Kaptai. Mitra Senji, he himself walked me through, and I took those pictures in his backyard that was burnt and all that, long story. So Vedas are as old as humanity, and obviously the oldest scripture known to humanity doesn't have any history. ये एक बड़ी problem है, जैसे पुरुष सूक्त है, नदी सूक्त है, उषा सूक्त है, all those descriptions in the Vedas, people say कि yes, वेदों में इतिहास है, but the history or the names come from the Vedas, not the other way around. They were not written by any person. They were given by 4 rishi, the Agni, Vayu, Aditya, and Angira rishi, and it gives a little details of what it had. And then the first disciple was Brahma. So that's how the Vedas are considered. The Brahma is supposed to be the source of 4 Vedas because he was the first disciple. This is like preaching the choir. Everybody knows that. So there are 20,000 hymns, 10,000 in the Rig Veda, and the rest 10,000 in all the other 4. And it has the knowledge of the God, soul, and nature. Ishwar, Jeev, or Prakriti. जो प्रकृति का ज्ञान है, primarily it is in the Atharvaved. So this is a very brief, so I'm walking through different pieces of this puzzle of how our civilization began, the creation, the human life, and now I'm going to a few other things about the history, and then I will go on to the history of Vedic Aryan invasion theory. That's probably the most important part. Now, there is a problem when the Sri Ram was. One view, if he was in this particular Chaturyugi, it was 0.9 million. If it was in the 24th Treta Yuga, then it was 18 million years ago. Hanumanji apparently saw 4 tusk mastodon during his secret visit to Lanka, and that's why it matches. The other way of putting these things together is by constellation. कि उस समय उस स्टार की स्थिति वो थी. And that's how the scientists have tried to put it together, and they come quite close to these numbers. Mahabharata was fought during the Dwapar. So Satyug, Treta Yuga, द्वापर और उसके 36 साल बाद कलयुग शुरू हुआ 3130 years BC. Few other facts. Takshila University established in the 5th century BC and flourishing until the 5th century AD. For almost 1000 years, Takshila जो पाकिस्तान में है, in the north part, and I'll give you a little detail about Saraswati civilization. Nalanda is in the south, and that is after that from 5th century to 1200 AD. Now Buddha and Mahavir were contemporary about the 6th century BC. King Ashok lived a couple of hundred years after, and a lot of reference was made how the King Ashok tried to bring the peace through spread of the Buddhism. Shankaracharya lived from 788 AD to 820 AD. And Vikram Samvat started 57 BC. Now some scholars believe that all these numbers go 1200 years further behind. I didn't find the proof, so I eliminated that but mentioned it. यानी कि जो ये numbers हैं, इससे भी 1200 साल पहले ऐसा हुआ था. I don't know. ये अच्छा, few things in the Vedas, including Vedic mathematics, and this is one example. The Pythagoras found this mathematician is a square plus b square c. It's all there in the Veda. ये उसमें है शतपथ ब्राह्मण as well as सुलभ सूत्र में. So having said that, now I'll go to the theory of Aryan invasion. So we have this Vedic civilization. I'm sitting among people who are extensively, deeply into this understanding and study and spread of Vedic message. Now what happened was that when British came, they came up with this idea that it's okay for us to rule India because, you also came from outside. Even Dravidian, so-called Dravidian, came from outside. So they said about 1200 to 1500 years BC, maximum 1900 years BC, people have chariots, horses, they had the iron, they had the tools, their knowledge was Sanskrit, and they wiped everything. Now think about, we came to America. We didn't invade, but came. Whatever we had is still there. So how can an invasion occur by someone where not a trace of anything is left to where they came from? And also those whom they displaced are still practicing the same thing as those who invaded. So it's almost no proof of such a thing is there. Now, so I'll go through this invasion theory is debunked completely. Asiatic Society was founded by William Jones in 15th January 1784 in Calcutta. He said that Sanskrit, Greek and Latin had a common source. Still most people say the same thing. I don't know why the education in India, the students are still being taught that Arya bahar se aaye. Maybe we can do something about that. The theory of Aryan invasion was put together at the meeting of the Royal Asiatic Society on April 10, 1866. In London, with the idea that it will prove that the whole history of Indian subcontinent was based on invasions. The excavation in Harappa started in 1920. And so it's all based on languages. No excavation, and they put it together. Miller Mortimer Wheeler, who was a student of Max Muller, he also said in 1947 that these people were Aryans for invasion. Three more people, for example, Lord Macaulay, who introduced the Western system of education, that he also same idea, same Max Muller. Stanley Baldwin said also that these are our long lost brother and we have a duty to convert our system of education. They found lots of seals. They found the injuries which were healed. Now, any massacre, if it suddenly occurred, somebody died. Injuries don't heal. They found evidence of healing. They found post-Harappan, Dwarka, Bed Dwarka, fire altars, all that in there. So, there is no proof. Now, Saraswati dried up about 1900 BC. So the theory was that these people came, but these people had already left because of tectonic activity. Saraswati died up. So all of this doesn't match. Saraswati was a mighty flowing river for almost 10,000 years, 8 to 10,000 years. There is a proof that about 6000 BC it was a flowing river, and then it dried up about 4000 years back. That's when people moved. So all this, now Shiv ki puja Kailash mein bhi hai, Rameshwar bhi hai. Where is the difference? Sanskrit is the more Sanskrit in South Indian language. The whole idea of being Dravid, there is no such thing as Dravid. This idea was put by a British priest named Caldwell in 1856. So it's all these same different types of people living in different places, and they're all one society. So William Durant said, just like you said, the Max Muller, India was the motherland of our race. Sanskrit is the mother of European languages. India was the mother of our philosophy, of much of our mathematics, of our ideals embodied in Christianity, self-government and democracy. In many ways, Mother India is the mother of us all. William Durant said that, American philosopher, historian. So there are some people who think right. Satellite image, as you can see, Saraswati. मैं राजस्थान से हूँ. You can see west part of the Rajasthan at the border. It's all along Saraswati River, and dry bed they found. This is the 5 गांव जो दिए थे ना पांडवों को. It is about that one that they found some excavations. They found evidence of the history of Mahabharata. Now, please look at this thing. This was the Saraswati flowing river which dried up. You see Satluj, Yamuna or Drishtavati. The Drishtavati is supposedly present Ganga. This is what I have read. The Satluj and Yamuna, because of tectonic activity around Meerut, that area, it suddenly took a turn and it went backwards and got into the Sindhu Nadi. And the Saraswati therefore dried up. So this is the next one. This is the present day. Luni and Ghaggar, these are the pieces of that Saraswati which has changed its course. Even the Ganga, Yamuna, the delta is continuously changing. The rivers too change their course. So that is why they say Triveni, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. So Satluj on that side, Yamuna on that side, and Ganga. So all this is a part of this Saraswati. Actually, Saraswati had 2 streams. The eastward became Brahmaputra. Western stream is what we have today. Now, please look at this slide, and I'll be having 2-3 minutes more after that. So, if you look at this slide, look at on the there's a Rani, what is the Rakhi Gadi. Apparently, Rakhi Gadi में आपको ज़्यादा पता होगा. क्षमा चाहता हूँ गलती हो तो राखी गढ़ी में अपने मोहनजोदड़ो हड़प्पा पंजाब में है और जो है मोहनजोदड़ो सिंध में है. पर इन दोनों से ज्यादा बड़ी सभ्यता राखी गढ़ी में उनको मिली है काफी, और उसमें काफी अवशेष मिले हैं. जैसे about 6,000 year old civilization. Then there is this something called Lothal, and there are several other places along the Saraswati River. They found lots and lots of evidence of old civilization. Now, I have been to Egypt, I've been to Greece, I've been to Italy, I've been to all these places. all this civilization goes back to about 5,000 or so years. It is very, very clear that this civilization is much older. हालांकि हम मानते हैं कि वेद स्वतः प्रमाण हैं, but even the archaeological evidence, even the linguistic evidence, nothing points towards other than saying that the Saraswati civilization, Vedic civilization, Sindhu Nadi civilization is the oldest civilization on earth. स्वास्तिक का कितना सत्यानाश किया है जर्मनी में, लेकिन ये स्वास्तिक वहां सील हड़प्पा में मिली है। अब देखिए, आप ये इसको देखिए, ये दो बर्ड दिखाई दे रहे हैं आपको, और जो ऐसे ऐसे है ना, बर्ड्स हैं। दो सुपर्णा सजया सखाया समानम वृक्षम परिषद सुजाते तयोरण्य पिपलम स्वादवत्य नश्नन्यो अभिचाक्षीति। वो जो पेड़ है वो प्रकृति है, राइट वाला वो परमात्मा है, लेफ्ट वाला वो फ्रूट का चक्रा है। कौन कहता है कि इस सरस्वती सभ्यता ये नहीं थी, बाहर से है? असंभव। आई होप वी कैन चेंज इट इनटू एजुकेशन। A priest, Mohenjo-daro, same thing. Now this is about the thermoluminescence. They found evidence of Mahabharata. Bed Dwarka, they found this Dwarika underwater. Sanskrit words from Mahabharata. After all the people had set out, ocean flooded Dwarika, which is still teemed with wealth of every kind. Whatever portion of land was passed over, the ocean immediately flooded. So that means it seems that the Dwarika was flooded almost immediately within early period after Shri Krishna at some point. ये देखिए रामायण का ब्रिज है, और ये what we have. So there is enough ample evidence. What I have tried to suggest to this distinguished audience, that yes, we should not just live in past, but be proud of what we have. Vedas are the source of all knowledge. Saraswati or the Vedic civilization has been in existence in this part of the world, including Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Burma, Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, all of this, thanks to invaders and British who put us into a smaller piece. But this was, all of it was one nation. And let's see how we can do Karvanto Vishwam Aryam. Thank you.